Hello, hello, hello.
How you doing?
I'm wonderful. Can you hear me pretty good? Hear me all right?
Yeah, can you hear me? Any echoes?
Nope, you good.
Good deal, good deal.
All right. Hello, hello, everybody. Good evening. Let me see who's on tonight. Let's see. Like we have like three viewers. Hey, Bird. Good evening. How you doing today, Tay?
I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain.
How was your day?
It was pretty good. Just a little nervous about tonight, but hey,
Nothing to be nervous about. We're gonna make it do what it do.
absolutely.
All right, so good evening, everybody. I'm not going to prolong the time. I'm so glad to have you on tonight. We're going to be talking about some things that we've kind of dealt with in our personal lives, as well as just other things we've heard from other people, things that we've heard and had to watch other people experience as relates to grieving with God. We're going to discuss what that looks like. We're going to discuss how that feels. We're gonna kind of give like the raw of the raw and the truth about grief, but also give you hope in knowing that you can grieve with God, and that's the only way that you will make it through it or live through it. Tonight it's such an honor to have such an awesome man of God with me on my first live podcast. I am introducing to you none other than the Mr. Arthur. He's a reverend and a minister in his own right, but he don't really want to do none of that. But you
Hey,
can only run but so long. The Mackenzie Dante Nelson. Welcome, Mr. Dante.
appreciate it. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. And hello, everybody. I'm a little nervous. I don't know why, but hey, I'm here.
I'm a little nervous too, so don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. It's the first of many, but I'm excited about what God is going to do with this here podcast. It is to uplift and encourage and to definitely glorify God. Um, but we're gonna jump right on in. So our first question for tonight, our little icebreaker, I guess you could say, would be, what does grieving with God look like to you? What does grieving with God look like to you? I'll hand it to you, Mr. Arthur, first.
Okay. What it looks like to me is just what it says, grieving with God. Not turning your back on God because bad things happen to you. Trusting Him. Even sometimes questioning Him. To explain what happened, explain the plan that He has for your life and why things happen. So again, with different people, they grieve differently, but I always say grieve with God, stay with God. Talk to God. If you're angry, say, God, I'm angry, I don't understand. I think a lot of people will tell you, it's God's will, you just should be okay with it. But until you're okay with it, ask questions. And there's nothing wrong with asking God questions. I mean, not question His sovereignty, of course, but saying, God, help me understand this, and why did this happen, and how can I get through it, and show me how to get through it. So again, just grieving with God is just what it means, grieving with God.
I totally agree. It definitely means grieving with God. It means not forsaking your first love, even when times get hard, when times get rough, when the going gets tough. It's staying focused on your destiny and your purpose, realizing that death is inevitable for us all. The Bible tells us that it is an appointed time, for us to live and to die. And so that's, I think that we kind of have gotten away from really being honest about that. We're here to perform and do things that God has called and ordained us to do, but we're not going to be here forever. And so we need to be prepared for those moments. That's why it's so important that we live a life that pleases God, not just on a Sunday morning or during a worship experience, but we try to live this thing out in our everyday lives. And so that's kind of what grieving with God looks like to me, is just being consistent even when we don't understand. Because if we're honest, you're never really going to understand why, why, or why when, or why that person. You'll probably never understand that. However, if we're trusting God completely, then we kind of, can navigate a little, well, not even a little bit, but I'm gonna say a lot better.
Right.
And if I'm honest on tonight, which that's just kind of how I am. Even in my book, I said some things, told some things that some people really didn't know. Ain't that right, Tay?
Yeah.
I have always been the type of person, I keep it real. Like I don't believe in fluffing up things. Because at the end of the day, that's just not my personality. Just being honest with you. But in I did not realize until I was writing my book that I really did not grieve with God. Like it's almost like I didn't trust him to carry me through it. So I didn't even deal with it. Like it wasn't that I didn't think that God was able, but I didn't even want to deal with it. Like I just went into autopilot. And I mean, as I was studying to write my book, I did find out about, the different stages of grief and how we kind of go through different stages, but no one taught this. I never heard there's stages to grieving.
Mhm.
I heard was accept his will, be strong, you'll get through it, you'll be all right. Take your time and grieve. But then you saying take your time, but then you still want me to leave and live and be functionable. Still want me to work. You still want me to pay bills. You still want me to be able to be in the right state of mind to function like I did not just experience a very traumatic thing.
Mhm.
But it's not something that we talk about. It's not something that we teach. So that's really why I wanted to create this podcast to where we can hear it from different levels, not just parents. Though tonight we'll be talking about the loss of both of our moms. Um, I don't really want to focus on just the loss of a parent. I want us to be able to talk about a loss from a divorce, a loss from a friendship, because we grieve these things, a loss of a job, we grieve these things, a loss of a child, we grieve these things. But we need to learn, like, we need to have tools and outlets and ways to learn how to navigate through these things because it's not really taught. And I just know from my personal experience, I wish I had a platform like this where people would actually talk about it. I wish that I had a platform like this when I was going through the thick of it to where I could tap in, log on, talk to other people, hear other people's testimony, because that's how we overcome. We
Mhm.
overcome by the words of our testimonies, and we're not transparent about that. We just put on a happy face and we show up like we're okay, knowing that we're literally broken, knowing that we're literally barely making it, but we're gonna show up, we're gonna smile though. We're gonna smile,
Mhm.
we're gonna hallelujah, thank you, Jesus, and then we're gonna go back home and lay in that misery. So I wanted this to be that type of podcast where we can really talk about the realness of grief. Now, as real as grief is, God is real too. So we have to also we can't talk about one without the other. We can't talk about one without the other. I will never say that grief is too much for God, because it's not. Nothing is too hard for God. Nothing at all. Nothing that we can ever go through, experience, live through, or whatever is too hard for Him. However, we have to be able to trust Him with it, even when it's ugly, because grieving gets ugly. It gets downright disrespectful. It doesn't care if you, it don't care nothing about you being at work. It can strike. Okay. It doesn't care nothing about if you in the grocery store. It can strike. It don't even care if you driving. Okay. Grief will strike. It will hit you in those moments that you don't even expect it to come. It comes in waves, but it's like I think I referenced it one time. It's like an unwanted, unwelcome visitor, somebody you didn't expect coming. And here it goes creeping up. You like, wait, hold up. I was just fine 5 minutes ago,
Mhm.
5 seconds ago. I was just as happy. I was just fine. And then all of a sudden, I'm in a whole inner turmoil. I'm on a whole nother level of a storm. I'm angry. I'm sad. I'm confused. And those are the things, those are the feelings, the emotions, the challenges that we don't talk about. It's okay to be a believer and still not be okay. That's one of the main points of my book. It is okay. It's all right. But we say we trust God. We say we serve God. We say we all in this thing and we sold out to God for real. But being sold out to God for real is being unashamed of where you really are. It's about that transparent part of you that you don't trust with everybody.
Mhm.
But that's your dad. So why wouldn't you trust God with it? So we're going to talk about that. So let's dive on in, Tay. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's roll.
All right. So let me hear from you about how you've navigated through losing your mom.
Wow. It's a uphill battle every day. I really when I understood the 5 stages of grief, and I think that people need to understand those. The first one is denial. You deny it. It's not real. When a person first died, that they coming back, or it's a big dream, or it's a nightmare, it's all those things. Then you go into the place of, where you're kind of, sad, feeling some type of way. You just angry, you're sad. It's a whole lot of different emotions. Then you go into bargaining with God. God, if you just bring the person back, I promise you I'll live for you. If you give me an opportunity to say one more thing to him, God, I promise you I will preach the word. These are things that I was doing when my mom died. I was like, Lord, if I can just get one more chance. Then I got to a place of depression. And then the fifth step is, of course, acceptance. And I think a lot of times people grieve differently, and everybody expect us to grieve the same. So when my mom died, I have 3 other siblings that are still alive too, and we all grieve differently, and I think that sometimes that they wanted us all to grieve the same, where it was all our mother, we all should feel the same thing. But what I realized is that we all had different relationships with my mother, some stronger, some weaker, and stronger in different areas for different reasons. My mom was like, what God had to show me is that somewhere in my life, I kind of put my mom up there close to God, not saying that she was God, but I put her there where God, too close to God. God said I would have no other God beside me, with me. It's just me. I'm all God. And so it's a lot of things that, I will miss, from my mom, talking about the Lord and her ministering to me and her correcting me, is all those things. And so like when my mom first died, it's getting easier. I'm not going to say it's there. Each day is I'm tolerating and I'm accepting things every day. But there's days where I go back to stage 1, where I go back into denial. I tell myself this ain't real. This is, even though it's been a year and some changes, this ain't real, man. She coming back, it's just several things like that. And God said, yeah, she is coming back. When I come back to get my saints, she'll be with me, so you're right, she is coming back. And all the ones that have died in me, they coming back. So get ready. So but it's been hard. I can't even lie, and as a man, I feel like a lot of times men don't cry. Man, suck it up. You strong, you gotta be tough. But like I tell people, this is my mom. You know what I'm saying? This was the first love that I ever experienced from a woman, unconditional love, and so I don't know why I'm getting right now. I'm having brain farts right now, I guess, because just trying to think about it and trying to really make myself really understand what's going on. But I've never cried so much. Can I be real right quick? I've never, even in my grieving with God, let me go back to that first thing for a minute. When I grieve with God, I was grieving with God, but then the flesh took over. So then I started grieving with Hennessy. Then I started grieving with Paul Masson. Then I started grieving with Newports. I didn't get to weed and do all that other stuff, but I started grieving with anything that can make me cope. And I think that sometimes, even though I know the Lord and I knew who God was, I knew his power, my flesh got the best of me. And that's why I would tell anybody, if you're going through any trauma, any types of grief, as it says before, stay with God, grieve with God and say, God, help me understand this, because some of us too deep, we get so, oh, hallelujah. Because see, the thing was, at my mom's homegoing, I shouted and I praised God like it was nobody's business. But what I didn't realize is that I had to go home, and reality was going to sit in, and that I was going to realize I was going to walk in the door and she wasn't going to greet me no more. It was going to come a time where I picked up the phone to call. She wouldn't be able to answer no more, and so it's things like that. It's just a smaller nuance things that you miss, that I miss about my mom. Just calling me to say, Mackenzie, to tell me something that really, I'm like, you could have saved that. But it's those things that I miss now. It's the little small things, even the times where, and I'm going to turn it back over to you in about 2 seconds.
No, take your time.
When my mom, before she died, and I'm going to tell you this, make sure if you have any issues with anybody, do not let the sun go down on your wrath. Do not let stuff keep you too distant, because my mom, she passed away in November. In October, I wasn't talking to my mom. She made me mad, and I felt some type of way. So I wouldn't talk to her. I had nothing to say to her at all. So when we would go out to dinner and stuff, I would pay for it, but don't say nothing to me. I'm not doing you right now. I had no idea another month later that she wouldn't be here. But my mom with her anointed self, and she, one day I was sitting at the house and she came to the door, knocked on the door. I'm like, who is this? And I looked out the window and it was her. I was like, oh Lord, what does she want? She came up with some food. She came up and I mean, she had it laid. And everybody love mama cooking. So,
Oh yeah.
it's your mama, you love her cooking. So she came to the door and she handed me the food. She said, I just cooked and I was coming all the way up here to get some water. Right, mom, you come get some water. But at that moment, we broke the ice and we talked for like 3 hours. Just sit there and just talk. And nobody knew. And like I said, I didn't know a month later that I wouldn't be able to talk to my mom. And in that month's time, I just realized how much the devil robbed me of. And I felt so guilty because I was like, I was so mad at my mom over something that was so petty. It was so petty, but I want to teach her a lesson. And I was like, when she died, I never got a chance to say goodbye. My sisters, them, they was able to go in and speak with my mom. And before she, was put on the ventilator, I never got a chance to say goodbye. So I felt robbed of that. So it's a lot of things I'm feeling even guilt, for as, things I wish I would have done better, even when she was sick, being able to pick up on clues that she wasn't as good as she led on. And sometimes I do the same thing. I'm good. I'm strong. I'm good. Dante, how you doing? I'm great. Blessed and highly favored. And then I get off the phone with the people and I break. So I just think that when we're going through grief, we got to be honest with people and let people know where we really are so they can truly help us.
Yeah, that is a key factor. That is a key factor, is being honest about where you are. If you lying and faking the funk about how far you really are, that's when the enemy really wants to play tricks with your mind. You'll become that's when you go into those isolating moments. You feel like let me just pull away, because I'd rather pull away than to have to talk to somebody about what's really going on with me. But the thing about that is, again, when we grieve with God, we trust Him to have people in our lives that can help us navigate through. I promise God will send help.
Yes, it will.
He will definitely send help, but we have to be open to the help. That's just like any addict or anybody who's addicted to anything. You have to first admit that you have a problem. You can't heal from something, and I say this all the time, you cannot heal fully from something that you want to cover up.
Mm-hmm.
You can't put Neosporin on um, something that's been severed off, like completely cut off. When you lose someone you love, it's literally like losing a piece of who you are. It doesn't matter if it's a sibling, a child, a mom, a dad. It's literally like losing a piece of who you are. How do you function without a leg? You have to have help with that. How do you function without a hand? You have to have help with that. You don't see them putting neosporin on those type of wounds. You see stitches, you see surgeries having to be had. It means it's very intense. And when you have those type of matters of the heart, you have to seek help. First of all, you seek God.
Mm-hmm.
God will then send the help. But if you're not being honest about where you are, it's going to be a very lonesome road, talking from experience. And you're going to struggle with a lot of things that you could possibly avoid just from being honest.
Mm-hmm.
I think my thing was I was afraid of breaking in front of people. I didn't want anybody to see that part of my vulnerability because I'm known to be so strong willed, even stubborn at times. I didn't want anybody to see that part of me. But the fact of the matter was, God saw it all along,
Mm-hmm.
and He was trying to send help. But I was so shut off because of what I was feeling that I didn't even allow myself to be helped. And then the help that I desired was not healthy help. So when you don't go to the healthy help, you will then turn to unhealthy help. That could be an addiction, that could be a person, that could be a little nightcap, it could be a one night stand, it could
Mhm.
be all type of sin will be in the camp, not just because you're so weak in spirit, but because you are broken in spirit. And anything that's broken, that leaves area for the enemy to enter in. The thing that keeps us sealed and healed and able to function and move forward is being completely covered by God. That's why we have to grieve with Him. He cares about everything that concerns us. The Bible tells us these things. But why is it so hard for us as believers to really give it to God, to really trust God, even when it's not attractive, when it's not all holier than thou? He understands because He made us. He made us. So therefore, we should be able to trust Him with our grief. He can carry it. He tells us to bring Him our burdens.
Mhm.
Bring them to Him. These are things that He has commanded, commissioned us to do. But even as saved as we claim to be, we don't do it. We will do everything else but that. And that's why, again, I feel like this was so important to have a conversation about, even for the people that have not experienced loss yet. Your time will definitely come. As long as you are living and breathing, you will have an opportunity to experience loss. And again, I'm not just talking about a loss of a person. I'm talking about you. Sometimes you lose yourself. Sometimes you lose your own identity. Sometimes you have to grieve what you thought would have been. So it goes so much deeper. When we think about grief, we always think about somebody dying, but we don't think about our own internal death that we have sometimes had to go through because of just making not so great decisions, or for not being completely transparent that we need help, that we need help. And I'm telling you guys on this line tonight, help is available.
Mhm.
I have put it on my fan page. I am open to pray with anybody, talk to anybody, meet up for coffee with anybody, because I did not have that. I didn't have it. And so, because I see the need and God has impressed it upon my heart so heavily, I'm going to obey Him and I'm going to be available. I don't care if it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. If my phone starts ringing and there's somebody on there, which I've had people to reach out to me already, saying they're having a day, or they're having a moment, or, I'm not too big, I'm not too grand, and I'm not too busy to stop what I am doing and help you go to war for your mind, because that's what ultimately is affected the most, is your mind. Grief is okay to grieve, it's okay to feel, but it will play with your mind. I had to be on anxiety medication. I had to be on medication for depression. I had to be on all of these substances, which honestly didn't do anything but put weight on me. Like, it didn't take the pain away. It didn't make it be any less true. At the end of the day, when I stopped popping those 4 pills a day, I still had to sit in my reality.
Mhm.
And all I did was prolong my healing process that was there for me all along. If I had just simply trusted God with my grief, not hold on to it like a badge of honor. Oh, but that was my mama. He knew that. He knew, because He trusted me to her. But I tell people this too. You have to understand that everybody's on borrowed time.
Mhm.
We're all on borrowed time. We are all on borrowed time. And once we get that in our minds, it doesn't matter whether it's a family, a friend, or foe. At the end of the day, we are all on borrowed time. My mom was my mom, but she was His child.
Amen.
She belonged to Him
Mhm.
first.
Mhm.
Before I was formed in her womb, before she was formed in her mama's womb, she belonged to Him. So I have to put that into perspective sometimes when I get in those moments where I feel the heaviest. I have to remind myself that I literally just had a gift in a mother. It was never determined that she would be here forever. It
Right.
was never determined that she would be here certain past a certain year of age, though that's what I had in my mind,
Mhm.
orchestrated in my thoughts and in my desires. That may not have been, well, it was not the will of God. And for him to see her suffering in illness and sickness, I can only imagine, because I know how I am. Any parents can attest to this that's on this live tonight. When your child is sick, it is a feeling that you have of helplessness, that you want to do whatever you can to help them feel better, to get them help, to medicate them, to make the pain go away, to whatever you have to do. So if I feel that way and I'm made in the likeness and in the image of Christ, then how much more does he feel about us when he sees us going through certain things? I just truly believe he loved her too much to allow her to suffer. And she had done this long enough. And he said, okay, that's enough. My child has, she done been through the ringer. She done held it down. She done been a witness to many. She's finished what she needed to do. She done told Tia about me. She done gave her Jesus. And that's the thing that's going to continue to carry her through the rest of her life. Now, what you said earlier, man of God, about how we kind of put people in certain categories, I'll be honest. I had not seeked God on the level that I have seeked him now when my mom was living,
Mhm.
because I would always go to my mom.
Mhm.
She was readily available. But in all honesty, in retrospect, God wanted me to come to him like that from the beginning.
Right.
He didn't want me to have to go to mama for the answer that he needed to give me. Not that I couldn't go to her for confirmation, but because he's God, he needed me to come to him. So even in her being gone, now I have to see it as this is an opportunity for me to get to know him in a way that I've never known him before. And I know him in a deeper depth than I would have ever known him had my mama still been living. I literally know him as a provider. I literally know him to be a friend. I literally know him to be my father and my mother, because they have both gone on to be with the Lord, or wherever that he ended up or wherever she ended up. I can't determine. I can only hope and pray and say what I think. But at the end of the day, he wanted me to rely on him to be my source of strength for everything. And in grief and dealing with that with God, I have learned how to lean on him even when things don't look favorable. And in this year of 2023, I have declared and decreed that this year is going to be a different year for me. And I'm not shrinking and I'm not staying quiet anymore, because somebody needs to hear these things. Somebody needs to know that they're not alone. Somebody needs to know that they're not going crazy, that they're not insane for still feeling the way they feel and loving God too. They have to realize that it can happen both ways on both sides of the spectrum. Now, the word tells us what to do with it. We're not supposed to grieve as those that have no hope.
Right.
So we do have hope, but it never said don't grieve. It never said that. It just gave us the perfect recipe on how to do it. Again, though, we can't do it properly if we don't grieve with God. So one more thing I want to talk about. You were talking about the stages of grief. Which stage do you think that was the most complicated for you? Was it the denial, the anger, the depression, the bargaining, or the acceptance?
Thing is, I really would say it was more or less the acceptance. I mean, if I had to be truly honest, because I don't really, if I was angry, I don't recall being angry. I, far as with people, I didn't show up with people. With God, yeah, I'm not going to church no more. I don't want to get married. I don't want to have no kids. I'm just telling God what I don't want. I don't want nothing that you have for me. Whatever you got other than me living, I don't want it. So I was angry with God because I'm saying my mother won't be able to be here with me to experience those things. So I don't want it. but God has the power to change the heart of the kings. And I know if he can change the heart of a king, he can change mine. But yeah, I would say acceptance was one of the biggest ones for me. Like I say, in some days I get it. You know, she's not coming back, and I'm living in a house that she resided in at one point in time. Honestly, I've never had peace like I have peace now. It's because my mom was a praying woman, so I just believe that she just, you know, prayed all through this house and just saturated it with the Holy Spirit. So even in being here, it's comfortable. It's peaceful, but accepting that some days I'm good, then I will go through something can happen, like another death can happen. You know, I just had a friend that just lost his mother. It triggers. So it just really just depends. You could be at stage 5 and be good, and then something can happen and trigger you right back to the first stage, and you back in denial again. This can't be happening again, God. You know, then you start bargaining. It's just the process start over and over. But each way, as you say, each day, I'm learning to say, God, you know, as you said in scripture, when mother and father forsake me, you will take me up. Even if my mother left me voluntarily or involuntarily, if my father left me involuntarily or voluntarily, God, you say you would take me up and you will hold me as your child. And I'm starting to see that every day, you know. So every day is not a sunny day, but, you know, again, acceptance is one of the hardest ones. I think that most people that go through grief have a problem with. I really think that's the one that is the major one. That's why it's the last stage, because it's the one that sometime between 1 and 4, you just keep going through that cycle for a minute before you get to stage 5 and be totally okay with it.
Yeah, I'm reading some of the comments. I see where my sister Treese, and hey, everybody who has joined, thank you so much for coming in. We're just talking about our different perspectives with grief and how we've handled it. We've both lost our moms, and so we're just talking about how we've navigated through it. I see where Tree said, she said, I feel like it for her, it was the all stages, especially being angry with God. I just couldn't accept that he took my brother and then you turn around and take my nephew as well. And that's the thing, you know, with loss, it can happen at any given time, like Tay said. So we have to be ever so careful to make sure that we're not operating in anger or resentment toward people we love, because we don't know when it'll be our last time. And we want to definitely know that we've been on a good path with them in the event that anything like that happens. But you already know, Treese, that we're standing in prayer with you. Most definitely, you know, I'm a phone call away, literally. You can pull up anytime if you need to talk. But we're definitely standing with you in prayer. I think I saw that Sister Shay said that she had a day today. I do understand, because Javion's birthday is on the horizon. I think it's coming up in the next couple of days. So we're definitely praying with you as well. Shay, you already know. We love you and we're praying with you. We're standing and agreeing and trusting God that you'll still make it through this season, because you have so much in your belly that you need to give out to the people. And this is just gonna birth more greatness out of you. One thing about birthing process, we know it's painful. And so as a mom and in the spirit, you have to continue to push, because that would be the will of God concerning your life. And I truly believe the more you push, the farther you're going to get, and the more God will get the glory out of your life. Because even in grief, he deserves it. I think they said Pastor was talking on the line this morning, because we're fasting and doing our consecration. He was talking about how, you know, God is beautiful in all things. He's still beautiful. And so, but we're definitely going to be praying and believing God and trusting God with you. Most definitely. And anybody else that have just come in, I did share earlier that you all can definitely follow my fan page. It's from the heart of the author. There you can find a link where you can email me, you can inbox me, and you can actually call me, and I will definitely be there to pray you through on days when you're having moments. I'm not too above it. I'm not too grand, because I do believe that that's what we need in this season, is people that's going to help us push to the next level. And not only that, but people that have been through it, that have walked through it. It's nothing more empty to me than someone trying to tell me where to go and they ain't never been where I've been. Um, I am a firm believer that those that have experienced loss can definitely help you navigate and get you to your destination because they've gone down the same road a time or two. That's just like driving around up here in Charlotte. I can tell you some back roads because I've driven before.
Mhm.
But if I go up there in sticks up there with Dante, I can't tell you how to navigate. I can't tell you how to navigate up there. And a lot of people, well, I'm gonna be quiet because I'm about to run out. I say, a lot of people they navigating and they swerving in lanes that don't belong to them, and then they wonder why they ain't going nowhere. Just saying, swerving and you don't know what you're talking about, and you telling people stuff that's false, stuff that's not God, and then you wonder why people haven't been delivered and healed. And then we don't want to be transparent enough to say, hey, when I was grieving, I went through this. I was in a whole relationship. Didn't nobody even know. Nobody. That's in the book, though. I ain't gonna tell y'all the whole story.
Gotta read it.
As a plug, too.
Right.
As a plug, y'all. So, Mr. Dante has another book. Now, I think this is your third. Am I right? This is your third book that you've released?
Yeah.
All right. So, tell us about your book, man of God.
Okay. So I can hold it up just one time.
Just hold it up. One good time right there.
One time. It's called When Trauma Strikes, Strike Back. This book came out of after losing my mom. I didn't know it was going to be in me. I really didn't, but God knew He was going to birth something else out of me. And I began just write about trauma. I think a lot of people just think about trauma as just death, but trauma comes in different forms, and I wrote about, being molested as a child, talking about how that trauma really affected me on how I dealt with this trauma, because that trauma that I experienced as a child, it made me not want to be vulnerable, because when I was vulnerable, people took advantage of me. So at this point, I got to be strong because I can't let them take advantage of me now, because I'm really vulnerable, after losing my mom. So I began to write about that. I talk about a whole lot of different things, how trauma itself, how we need to strike back with trauma. And it's kind of coincide with what you're saying, grieving with God, is that we have to strike back with trauma with the word of God. Anytime that the devil comes at me and tell me, he's even told me, kill yourself, if you really want to see your mom again, just go ahead and just offer yourself. Nobody cares about you anyway, just die, but then I had to remind him, the Bible says, I shall live and not die and declare the words of God. And then I had to remind him that even before I was placed in my mother's womb, he knew me. So all these things I had to keep reminding the devil with the word. So when trauma strikes, and sometimes it's easier said than done, but we got to go back. The only way we're going to get the devil up off of us is with the word. I don't care what else you do. You can curse the devil. You can do all the natural calisthenics and it won't work. But when you hit him with the word, he has to back up. And so it's so many different things I talked about, how you become a narcissist, from just what trauma, and how even in grief, how it can make you become a narcissist, where you just be all about yourself. You're not concerned about nobody else. And at some point you got to be a little selfish and worry about your mental health and your being, yourself. But at the same time, there's other people that was affected as well, using when you have a loss of a loved one. So you got to kind of be a village to each other and be able to lean on each other. Like if you're going through on Monday, and I'm strong on Monday, I should be able to be here for you on Monday. And Tuesday, I may be weak, and you should have got some strength on Monday when I poured into you. But what I find out is that you are pouring into people in their time of loss, in their time of need. They won't pour back into you. And I'm so tired of people, and I'm going off the cuff just a minute here, treating people like when you go to the bank, you put in a deposit, you get a withdrawal. People keep coming to you, and you already in you already default in your account. You already got NSFs hitting you left and right. You already depleted, and people still pulling on you. So what I would tell you is, sometimes isolating in your grief is not a bad thing, because you need to rebuild your reservoir. You need to get strength from God, so therefore you can go back out and teach others. So in this book, I talk about a whole lot of stuff, like I said again, because I want people to understand, especially I can speak from a son's point of view, a male's point of view, a point of view of a person that's unmarried, that have no kids. And I even explained that to my siblings, that they have marriages and they have kids. With me, it's a little different, because my mom was my go-to in the natural. Like if I want to hang out with somebody, if I need to talk to somebody, if I ain't had nobody to talk to, I can call her. I know we can talk for 3-4 hours and I can get through it. But being by yourself sometime. And that's what the devil told me. You're all alone. Your mama's gone. And when I was writing that book, I said, you know what, Lord? My mom, I just believe she had a conversation with him. And she said, you know what? Everything, like you said earlier, what I put inside of him, it won't return void, God. You said, if I speak over my child and I pray over my child, even though he's an adult man, what I've spoken concerning him, you say your word won't return void. And you said, when I decree a thing, it shall be established. So all these things that I will hear my mom in the like, just it sometimes reverberates in my spirit. I begin to put it on pen. So it's a lot of things in the book. Like I say, things that my family, even through this process, did not know. Some of the stuff that I said, some of the things I did. Now I didn't start having sex because I didn't think that was wise to go intertwine myself with somebody else and get some more spirits on me. And then dealing with the alcohol thing, that had me in a whole different, them spirits was talking even more. And that's why I had to really say, you know what, God, you got to do something. You got to really do something. And so when I wrote the book, it began to dissipate all that I was going through. I was able to get it out and put it into the book. So like I said, man, it's a really not really a long book. You could probably read it in a day, maybe two. And you know, I just hope they can bless somebody and let them know that you're not alone, that God has your back. And like Tia said, is that if you need to reach out to somebody, you can reach out to Tia, me, people that have gone through it, because again, I've learned a lot of people will tell you it'll be okay when they've never been in that situation. I can't tell a woman how it feels to have a baby because I'm a man. I don't know what that feels like. I never can do that, you know. So, but what I can do is I can explain from a person that doesn't have a father, natural father, doesn't have a mother, that have lost, you know, siblings, you know, and nephews, and just don't had a lot of loss in my life. But I already know that it's going to be, it's going to get greater. And I ain't talking about when I get over there. I'm talking about here. God going to let me see some promises here.
Yes.
Already starting to see some now coming to fruition where God has promised. Because, and I'm gonna say this to you, I'm gonna turn it back over to you. My mama told me last year, in 2021, we're in 2023 now, but 2021, I said, Mom, I said, my lease up, I'm moving home. She said, yeah, come on. I said, I'm moving back home. I said, because it's rent. It's disrespectful and it's ungodly. I'm coming home and I come live with you. She said, that's fine. And then I said, you know what? Matter of fact, I'm not coming home. I'm just going to buy me a house. She said, well, the Lord will give you a house. And this is in 2021. Said, the Lord will give you a house. How did I know that when she passed away, that she left a whole house to me, you know, and everything that she even spoke? I don't know if she knew she was going to leave here, the inheritance, or what. But what God said concerning me and what I decreed, it happened. Now, would I rather have my mama than this house? Absolutely. I'd rather had her still staying in my apartment paying that high rent. But God had another way, and now she has a mansion. She's in her mansion. My hope and my prayer, I believe the life that she lived, that she's over there and her mansion is prepared for her and she's in it. Me, now I got to get mine because I can't get comfortable in this house where I miss my mansion. So, and I can't let grief get me to the point to where I miss my mansion and I miss my relationship, miss me seeing the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, the one that died for me, that my mother and I and everybody that's living could have life. So I can't miss him. So I got to see him too. So it's a lot of things I write in this book. Like I said, I'm gonna give you the word because that's just who I am. But at the same time, I'm gonna be realistic too and be very vulnerable. So
I love it. I love all of it. All of it. But I have to circle back about this here right here. This giving out and not getting back. Okay, so I'm gonna say this, and I mean, this isn't something that is easy for me because I'm such a giver. Like, I will do anything for anybody. I will go out my way to try to make sure for anyone. But in this season of my life, I have tapped into, I have to take care of me too. I have tapped into that because I have gotten to that place where I was on empty and no one could refill me. And then I was just going back to God, like, well, God, why is this happening? And why I feel like this? Well, that's because everybody's not my assignment. Okay. So for those of you who are definitely going through loss or grieving or even experiencing life and it's a little difficult right now, I need you to realize that everybody's not your assignment. Pray and ask God for those godly connections, those covenant connections, the ones that will pour back into you while you're pouring into them. And if it's not happening like that, then you know it's not a covenant, it's not a God connection. It's just you wanting to have a friend.
Mm-hmm.
You wanting to have a boo. That goes with relationships too. Do not allow grief to push you into relationships that are unhealthy for you. Things that's going to make things harder for you. Things that's going to make it worse for you, because then you'll be grieving the person that you lost, and then you'll be grieving a relationship that you were never supposed to be in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Guard your heart. Your heart is already shattered. You're already going through different emotions and changes and phases. Relationships is not a good idea. Not in that vein. Not at that moment. Now, I cannot say that God will not send you someone, because if you're praying for that, He will. But just make sure that you're ready when they come.
Amen.
And make sure that you're not carrying a bunch of baggage of unhealthy stuff with you when you go. I have definitely prayed the prayer of God, prepare me. I know I'm a wife, but prepare me, because I don't want to carry any of my past trauma, abuse, none of that into my marriage. So definitely try to make sure that you're governing yourself accordingly, and you're really being prayerful about your decision making, even when it comes to your family. Even when it comes to your family, okay? Because sometimes with family, if I must say it, I will. You know, I will. Sometimes with family, what I have learned is that DNA does not matter as it relates to family. Some of the most loving, caring people, some of the best relationships I have, we do not share the same DNA.
Mm-hmm.
We do not share the same blood. We do not share the same parentals. We do not share the same nothing. I wasn't raised up with them, but they are some of the most genuine, true, loving people ever. And one thing about being saved, you have to really gravitate to the fact that when you become a kingdom citizen, your family changes anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Your family changes once you are a kingdom citizen, and you cannot expect godly behavior out of worldly people. You want them to love you and treat you right, but they don't even love God. So if they don't love God, they don't know God, then how do they know how to love at all? God is love. That's the word. So if they don't know love in God, then how can they know how to love you?
Mm-hmm.
So free yourself from that. Get freed up tonight. Free yourself from the bound and the bondage of feeling like that you got to hold on to people just because they're family. I know we were taught that type of stuff, but biblically it's not even there, because if you realize even Jesus separated from his family and kindred,
Mm-hmm. Right.
he didn't go out on ministry with his family. He went with people that he recruited and turned into believers. Those that wanted the word, those that wanted to learn, those that wanted to be molded. You cannot make people be what you want them to be. And it's all right. You can still pray for them, love them, and all that great stuff. But that does not mean that you have to keep a constant connection with those people. And it's not a bad thing. I'm learning that. And I'm telling you from experience, I'm actually learning that right now. I'm learning it. And as I learn it, I'm going to continue to share and be honest with other people, because I've caused myself some unmerited grief because of me trying to make things be something with people that they're not even where I am mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So they won't ever understand why I still love the way I love. They will never understand. They will never understand. So it's okay to let it go. And Shay, listen, I understand. I have been hurt too. That whole grief thing, that whole process. I mean, I wrote about it, but I mean, you will never really know people's true colors until you lose somebody. Let somebody hit you. And I promise to God, all the true colors that you didn't even know could be painted. I ain't never seen so many pinks and reds and greens and stuff that I never thought. I mean, in a shade that I've never seen before.
Right.
Until my mama,
Right.
until my mom, left here. And that's when the rubber hit the road. She was the buffer for me.
Mm-hmm.
Now God is my buffer.
Right.
And he holds me in a place of accountability where I can still pray, not hold malice and don't hold grudges, but at the same time love them from a different place. So just y'all take note of that as well. Um, as far as then, I want to talk about this one more thing, and then we're gonna go ahead and log off. I want you all to make sure that you take care of your bodies while you're grieving, because your body go through a lot of changes. Okay, and that's just natural, because all of your levels and stuff, people don't realize that your levels and stuff go haywire when you're experiencing loss, because of the brunt of it. It's traumatic. It's very traumatic. I learned a lot of things when my mom passed, things that I probably should not have done, please, things I probably should not have gone to and witnessed, thinking that I was strong enough, because when they closed that casket, she went on, and I had to live with the trauma and the things that was buried with that whole funeral, with the whole planning, with all of that. It's traumatic. Some of those things we have to do, but some of those things I did not have to do, but I was trying to do. And honestly, my mom was gone, so she didn't know I was doing it anyway.
Right.
All right. She didn't know that I was going the extra mile. And the people that I was doing it in front of, they didn't care that I was doing it. And so I just put extra trauma on my back that I had to see in my dreams when I closed my eyes, things I had to feel when I would touch certain things, certain smells that would trigger me, things that would have never triggered me like that if I had just stayed in my lane and just did what I know I should have done. But again, I wasn't fully grieving with God at that very moment. And because I was not grieving with God in that very moment, I was misled in my emotions. And that's why I'm trying to tell you all the importance of grieving with God. It is so necessary. That's the only way you're going to make it through it, I promise. And if you try to do it on your own, you're going to come back to God with it anyway. You're going to come back to God with it anyway. So just don't waste your time with that. Okay? Please, ma'ams, please, sirs. And again, we thank you all for this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful first podcast tonight. I'm not going to hold y'all too much longer. I think we didn't talk long enough for the first. I mean, we could do this all night because this is what we do. But I'm not going to make y'all sit through that. Again, I appreciate all of you for joining us tonight. Again, tonight's session was Grieving with God. This is from the author's heart. I also have a book out. Feel free to inbox me, reach out if you want a book. I do have a vending event coming up in February. I'm planning for that. I have a lot of things on the horizon in this new year. God has literally in 10 days had me birth out so many things that it's almost hard for me to keep up. Okay. So y'all be on the lookout for the things to come. I have plenty of other things coming up the pipeline. I thank you all for your time, for your comments. Again, if y'all need us, we're only literally a tap of the finger away. Please go and like my page From the Author's Heart. Like and follow, share it with somebody else that you may think may benefit from it. This is not the only podcast. We will probably be doing this probably every week on a Tuesday at the same time, same place. I'll definitely send the information out as well. And also the book, my book, The Misconception of Grief in the Life of a Believer, is available on Amazon. You can get it as far as on Amazon, or you can just inbox me and I'll get you a copy. But yeah, that's that. So I hope that something that we have shared has blessed you guys. It will help you guys, and it'll help you navigate through grief. Grief is real. God is also real, though. He's able to carry our grief if we trust him with it. So I implore you to grieve with God. I love you all with the love of the Lord. And yeah, that's it for tonight. I pray that again that you all were blessed. And Tay, thank you so much again.
You're welcome.
For being my first visitor on the podcast. Mr. Author, again, y'all, his book titled When Trauma Strikes, Strike Back. Know how to go to war. All right. Know how to fight back. Y'all need to go ahead and grab that too. That is also available on Amazon. You'll see it at the bottom of the screen. It's there. All right. And if after this session is over, I'll put the links up on my page as well. Love you guys with the love of the Lord. I hope y'all have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful night. And we'll see you again soon. All right.